Hello, my onions. My name's Jake Allen Graham. That's the name of my YouTube channel, and my name. Jake. Anyway, I'm reviewing 2005 Batman movie called Batman Begins, the first installment in the Nolan trilogy, and the superior Batman movie in the Nolan trilogy. Of the trilogy. Um, just going to go to get myself a seat. So yeah, this Batman movie is the best in the Nolan trilogy, I say. I give this easy a score, a 10 out of 10 as a score. The only one that I actually cared, like, got my attention, this 100% I felt invested within the Nolan trilogy. This is the only Batman movie in the Nolan trilogy I say is worth giving a watch again more than once. It's also the least stupid writing and the least problems with the story, and well, it might not have the most consistent cinematic action constantly thrown at your face like the Dark Knight or Dark Knight Rises 2012 flick, or the 2008 flick with Jack Nicholson, Heath Ledger's Joker. Sorry, I forget his name because he's just such a forgettable generic villain as Joker because of how he's poorly edited out of the plot. And not really given a whole lot of screen time to show his kills, ever. Once. It would be nice if we saw his kills once on screen and how gruesome they were. It's PG-13, so what can you do? But it is kind of funny how in 2012 Dark Knight movie, third installment, how it wasn't it actually showed Bane killing somebody. Besides just him cutting away from it, showed him like suffocate a guy with his knee and just snapped his neck. Suffocate a guy and it killed him very quickly on screen, and then showed that got him hanging with the other corpses, and I feel like the one that in the Dark Knight trilogy, the one that showed the best pointless, violent cinematic shots was the third installment. Most consistently. Shoehorning the most cinematic action constantly in your face. That was sick and mature and creative. Besides violence, pointless. Violence. Pushing the envelopes for PG-13 rating. Something that the Dark Knight failed to do. I felt like, and also kind of Batman Begins failed to do. And, with the violence to the Batman third installment in the Batman Begins trilogy, known as the Dark Knight trilogy by Nolan, I will say the most mature the violence got in going there and trying to actually. The only time I felt like that I've noticed, no matter how many times I've watched these movies, even though I think Batman Begins is the best story out of all of them, and the best paced Batman movie out of all of them, and the best story-wise because it has the least amount of dumb plot holes out of all of them for me. However, it doesn't I feel like I push the envelope and with this mature thing with when it comes to the violence. The violence are pretty tame for a PG-13 movie. Like, it feels like it's made for kids how the violence is shot. And like a TV PG-13 movie for kids brought to you by Nickelodeon or Disney is how the violence is shot in this movie. And briefly and quickly edited together. And with constant close-up shot fight of Batman instead of wide-angle shots, where you can make out the geography better, like in the sequels. Those are the one thing I gotta say the sequels got right, is the action of the violence, of the mature violence. Cinematic shots with the sequels that I felt like, for some reason, this movie likes to use a bunch of quick edits often when it gets to the violence around the action shots. Batman's supposed to make Batman look badass and like a cool ass hero, like really cool. And sometimes I think sometimes the shortcut, the quick edits can work. And there's a lot of quick edits in this movie. Sometimes the quick edits work when he's like interrogating people, like Kramer or Flash, the police officer, for questions. Come to think of it, there's only 2 times Batman interrogates people in this movie, and that's was interrogation. People and scaring the shit out of people and interrogating them for answers. You know what? You got that less in the sequel trilogy of the Dark Knight trilogy. I feel like you didn't really get that all. You never saw like Batman be really angry and irrational and impatient with criminals, like you see him in the first movie. Like, he comes across like a very Frank Miller inspired take on Batman within the first Batman Begin movies. Sort of like how Robert Pattinson came across with his unhinged anger within the Batman movie. The first one that Robert Pattinson started, and yes, I know it was supposed to be going to be a trilogy, but the trilogy's been delayed. The sequel's been delayed tons and tons of times. I don't know what's going to happen. And I don't expect it to happen, but I want it to happen. It's one of those things, though. It's like I want the Snyderverse to happen in return, but I don't doubt it'll happen. That doesn't mean I'm going to see the Gunverse and promote it, because I want the Snyderverse to come back. And I want a third Keaton Batman movie. And I want a superior sequel to Batman Begins than what we got with the Dark Knight trilogy for all 3 installment sequels. As a Batman fan, this was the only time when Nolan felt like he fully delivered on the fans. The rest of the movies trilogy, problem with the Nolan trilogy, I feel like not only came obsessed with Nolan, came obsessed probably about trying to show a different world of Batman instead of what we wanted to see from Batman, what wasn't broken, instead of giving us what wasn't broken, more of what we saw in Batman Begins. He kind of rebooted it with more Nolan style real world building and less like a comic book real world, based off how he makes Gotham City look different in the Batman Begins movie and the 2 sequels to the Nolan trilogy. The sequels in the Batman trilogy that started had a very depressing looking city, pretty much all around that needs to be saved. But and makes sense why Batman would become Batman within that city of that's pretty much like a decaying, corrupt city. And it's like a nuts, but it's like in that first Batman Begins movie, I felt like the city felt like alive and like a character of its own, like it did in the Burton movies. It felt like a dark, depressing city with lots of corruption. Why giving a reason why the world needs Batman. in Gotham City. I felt like the Nolan sequels with Gotham City, it looked too normal, too clean cut, and less corruption, less shady, more clean cut. Normal people were coming and going out of coming and going within the Nolan trilogy as it went on. I felt like the Nolan trilogy with Gotham City just looked too normal, like your everyday city, and it didn't look like or felt like there was any corruption, however, within the Nolan trilogy as it went on. So it felt like more inspired by the 60s Adam West clean cut Gotham City, where everything's pitchy and dandy. And the world trusts Batman, blah 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 blah. And this looks it's too normal. It's like his Gotham City in the sequels. It just doesn't feel like a character alive like it did in the first one of its own character. It's just felt pointless to make a sequel to Batman Begins, I say. As a Batman fan, and as a fan of historian of fan of cinema, and just like seeing lots of movies for fun and reviewing them on YouTube, including my off time. Off YouTube, I like watching movies a lot. And I like collecting movies. So yeah, there's one movie I like. I just like movies a lot, and so I'm a bit of a historian collector of movies. I am, but I have a big physical media collection of movies. Very big than you would normally see for other people having collection of movies. It's big was for, I'm told by my dad, it's not normal big, it's pretty big of movie collection I have for physical media. And I have some digital movies I've seen here and there, but I just like physical movies collecting. It's a nice hobby to get into. So is this show, talking about this movie. Oh yeah, Batman Begins. So Batman Begins is a 10 out of 10 because also, hang on, I gotta get a drink. I'm missing my drink. I give Batman Begins a 10 out of 10. Oh, there's my drink. Because, another reason why I give Batman a 10 out of 10. I actually like Bale's performance as Batman, how he was written into plot, and he felt like the most well-rounded character out of, and the most developed he got. I thought he got the most developed and become the most, and it's just like it didn't got better after the sequel. I mean, the first one wrapped up and entered the Dark Knight. I just felt like Batman, it's like the Batman Begins movie was the best superior Batman movie out of the trilogy, because I felt like Batman had more to do than just punch guys to the plot to make him relevant again in pop culture, or to the movie. Wasn't making this the best Batman movie. He's like he's got the most emotional arc in this movie, and he doesn't get the most fighting because he doesn't wear the Batman costume as often he just does in the sequels. So, but him origin story unfolding, it feels very epic and personal. It feels like they nailed the tone for Batman and make him like a hero, but also kind of this boogeyman that's basically, for better or for worse, Gotham's savior and the hero that Gotham needs. even though they might not want him. He's that kind of crazy, fucking obsessed lunatic to save Gotham. He feels like a real angry version of. I like how angry he feels in this movie, and how much impure rage he feels a lot, and how impatient he gets and irrational he gets with criminals when interrogating, when he doesn't get, like, think he gets answers or good enough answers. That makes sense. So, and I like how he's constantly in this movie, like, competent, written as a hero, competent hero to the plot, and it's like, and I like how, like, it's like movie ties into his origin story, while also taking it and reimagining different direction within this universe that Nolan directed in this movie. This universe was a much better universe than what was in the sequel universe. I honestly feel like Batman 2, known as The Dark Knight, 2008 movie, felt more like a reboot sequel, like Amazing Spider-Man 2 with Andrew Garfield. Like, it felt like it was trying to please desperation by making the movie lighter intentionally, visually, and giving him a different costume that represents Spider-Man more. Yeah, and kind of when, like, and that worked for Spider-Man, I think. But I gotta say, the opposite works for Batman. And even when Spider-Man did it with Andrew's era, I wasn't fully on board. I'd rather just have a straight up sequel that's more in line with the first Amazing Spider-Man movie, with the style and tone and mature themes and developing the character forward. But I just didn't think the Amazing Spider-Man 2 was a top-notch sequel like it should have been. It has a bit of a. It has problem like there's too many. It changes so many things on a style level and tone wise compared to his predecessor 2012 flick, Amazing Spider-Man. And Batman kind of does the same thing with his sequels, The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, 2012 and 2008 sequels. Like, it changes the aesthetic look to make it look more real world, but also brightens the colors a little bit to make it look more lighthearted, but it takes itself seriously. So, with them having them deliver their lines. And then as the trilogy went on, they focused to writing jokes, more jokes, and less serious drama moments with the sequel to The Dark Knight. In fact, I honestly noticed that The Dark Knight 2012 flick has the most jokes in the Dark Knight trilogy. And the least one that has the least amount of corny jokes forced writing into the plot of Dark Knight that are meant to be jokes, so happens to be Batman Begins. The more I real looking back on the Dark Knight trilogy, I've come to realize that in talking about it in this video of Batman Begins movie. And another thing I gotta say, I gotta drink, is Batman in the Batman sequels, his voice I never cared for. I don't know why he did completely different range voice than what he did in Batman Begins. Because this is Batman Begins voice in the sequel he does in 2012 movie and 2008 movie is completely unintelligible, and completely not even recognizable to what he did with the voice in Batman Begins. With the Dark Knight sequels, his Batman voice sounds absolutely unintelligible, like Kid Rock, Devil Was Our Cause album, explicit. You know, Kid Rock, when he sings, and I'm a Kid Rock fan of his music, I listen to that shit like I listen to the Dark Knight sequel. Suck it, they're on the same level of crap. Just listening to that Batman voice in the Dark Knight sequels. I think he sounds like Kid Rock when he's not singing, but with a sinus infection. He sounds like Kid Rock with a sinus infection. We know this is what Batman sounds like, I think. And the Dark Knight trilogy sequels, 2000 and 2012, second. I couldn't take him seriously in the Dark Knight sequels less than I could take George Clooney seriously in Batman and Robin, which the Dark Knight sequels Christian Bale starred in. 2008 and 2012 Dark Knight sequels to Batman Begins. Batman Begins is the only good one where he actually doesn't force his Batman voice out of range, out of his limit range with his acting. I don't know why, but when he's in the... Why the fuck? Who told him to change the voice from what he had in Batman Begins? Nolan? The screenwriter? The editor? Who? Or did he just thought, oh, I'll make Batman sound like he has a sinus infection and suffering very bad breathing problems? You know, science, yeah, sure. Try scaring one with a sinus infection, Batman. Or maybe you should try taking antibiotics to fix that sinus infection, Batman. But when you have it clearly in the Dark Knight sequels, 2008, 2012, Batman, you need antibiotics for that sinus infection, I say. Then you'll sound more like a competent, scary Batman like it did in Batman Begins. Where's your Batman voice, Batman? Do not do a Dark Knight 4 Batman, Christian Bale, unless you plan on giving the same voice that you used for Batman Begins. And bringing that voice back instead of whatever the fuck you were doing the sequel voices was Batman. Nobody's scared of a dude with a sinus infection. Let's worry and pity the fella. Think about it. That's a sign of a weak man. An unhealthy man. A man close to death. A sinus infection man is what Batman sounds like. Batman was a sinus infection. Thank you, Christian Bale. 2008, 2012 sinus infection Batman voice for the Dark Knight trilogy sequel to Batman Begins. That's why Batman Begins gets a 10 out of 10. I love this Batman movie a lot. It was fucking awesome. That's why 2005 Batman movie gets called Batman Begins, starring Christian Bale as his first outing only good Batman performance has Batman and Bruce Wayne. As written as the only time he's a competent hero, Batman, with a was it was the only time when he's written without a laughable, stupid, retarded voice. That makes him sound like a total retard. Like the retarded policeman, worse than. The guy that plays him. Character. The retired policeman character. You know, ever heard of the retired policeman YouTube character? Well, Batman has a more sillier voice than the retired policeman character, who's played by an actual retired person. In real life, I found out. And his character's retired, and he has and that voice is not even that real retired actor's voice. He just makes it for the character, I guess. I think the sequels to Batman Begins are supposed to be a spoof movie. Because Batman sounds like a fully functional retard, like the retarded policeman. Pretty smart for a retarded fella. But retarded is still retarded. And that voice is, wow. That doesn't make him sound like he's an intelligent bastard. But below what's considered average IQ. Simple, retarded. Definition. Let that be a lesson, folks. If you ever see that Batman called Christian Bale, you tell him his Batman sequel suck because it sounds totally like a fucking retard. Was that Batman voice? And they will explain what that means as I explain to you what retired means to him. Just in case if he's trying to live in denial and think his Batman voice is cool. If all that money's swimming in, who can blame him? The ego must have gone to his head. Christian Bale ego. And that's why Batman Begins like a 10 out of 10. It's the only one that doesn't feel like a spoof on Batman installment with the Nolan reimagining take of the Cape Crusader, the Dark Knight character. Batman Begins gets a 10 out of 10. I approve of this movie. I give it a solid 10 out of 10. Go view this movie, buy it, stream it, or get it physical if you can. It's awesome. I recommend get on Blu-ray and don't have a Blu-ray player. Get the fuck it on DVD. If you have a DVD player or just stream stuff, that's okay. Just go see this movie. This movie's the best and the Nolan trilogy has to offer. As a Batman fan and as a fan of cinema, it's a 10 out of 10. I love this fucking movie. Goodbye. Subscribe, like this video. See you next time. My audience, love ya.